Welcome to the show. I'm Chris Smiley. Glad to be back in studio. We're live on Facebook, Jadu, and you can catch our shows as always on YouTube as well as on our Facebook page. Really excited about our show today. I've been working on a really important project for us all to take part of. So if you haven't seen my most recent episodes, I was talking about the human rights crisis in Palestine. I was actually in Palestine and Israel for 3 weeks filming and reporting on the situation there. And of course, I've been talking about it on my show as well. The UN finally called it what it is, an apartheid state. So what we can all stand to learn from that is something really important. That's what I'm going to get into today, something that relates to all of us, especially Afghans. It's extremely important for us to stand in solidarity and support our brothers and sisters in Palestine that are being oppressed. Even though it may not affect us directly, even though it might be easy for us to turn away and not pay attention to situations like Palestine, it's very important for us to show our support for people that are oppressed anywhere, especially in Palestine, and it's so important. And I think Martin Luther King said it best, why we need to do that. So let me play a quick clip here from Dr. Martin Luther King on why this is important for us.
Those who say to me, stick to civil rights, have another answer. Others can do what they want to do. That's their business. If other civil rights leaders, for various reasons, refuse or can't take a stand or have to go along with the administration, that's their business. But I must say that I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
So as Dr. Martin Luther King was saying, injustice to anyone, anywhere, is injustice everywhere. And it's really important for people of the world to stand together against war, against oppression. That's our greatest chance to see peace in our own communities and peace in the world as a whole. So when we look at the situation in Palestine, when we look at the situation in Afghanistan, what can we do for some of us that don't live in these war zones or in these countries at the current time but want to do something? What can we do? Well, Palestinians have found a very unique way to fight back nonviolently. In addition to their nonviolent protesting and their nonviolent actions of civil disobedience, there's a really interesting campaign going on that we can all take something from and that we should support. It's called the BDS movement, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction Movement. And you might have already heard about something like this. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So what it means is, what we want to do is boycott certain companies that support the Israeli occupation, the Israeli oppression. And this is a pretty large movement that's going on. I met with some of the organizers of this BDS movement, and it's had a significant impact. We've seen international companies pull out of business in Israel, such as Orange, CRH. They've all exited the Israeli market after these high-profile BDS campaigns. So, for example, Viola sold its businesses in Israel and ended its role in infrastructure projects for illegal Israeli settlements. So these settlements that I talked about before, you may have seen, where they're stealing land from the West Bank in Palestine and building these Jewish Israeli-only settlements where that they have the exclusive right to live there. So these settlements are illegal under international law, and a lot of these companies were supporting this by helping to build these settlements. And the BDS movement called out these companies, called for a boycott, and eventually enough pressure and enough profits were lost where they pulled out. What happened was communities that also were doing business with these companies, they said, you know what, if you're going to do that business over there, we're not going to do business with you here. And that that amounted to $20 billion that this company was losing out on. So eventually they changed. They said, okay, we're not going to support the Israeli settlements. We're not going to support building those anymore. So doing things like that are so impactful, because when you hit people in the wallets, I think that's where we can really make a difference. Protesting, I understand its significance, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't have quite the impact that we need for this real significant change. It's important to get out there and show our voices and do certain things to make people aware of what's going on. But when we can do certain tactics to really hit the people that are making these horrible things happen, when we can hit them in their wallets, because that's why a lot of these situations are happening. People are making a lot of money off of war, off of oppression, off of stealing people's lands, off of invasions. People are making a lot of money. So when you impact what they're really in it for, that's where you can make a difference. So, I recommend everybody to check out BDS, what the Palestinians are calling for, what companies. I'll mention a few companies right now of just things you can. Now, some of these construction companies, you might say, well, how am I going to boycott them? I'm not a business owner. I don't have these companies in my community. But there's a lot of companies that are supporting the Israeli occupation that you actually do probably support, and you don't even know it. So, for example, HP, Hewlett-Packard, a huge company, they help out the Israeli occupation, and what they do is the ID system that Israel uses to restrict Palestinian movement, to kind of cage these people up. So if you want to get from one street to another, as you may have seen in my other show, I had to go through these prison-like system, these cages, just to move from one street to another that's in the West Bank. This is in Palestine. I'm not talking about going, okay, I want to go from the West Bank, Palestine, into Israel. You might expect some security checkpoints. I'm talking about moving within Palestine itself. They've divided up and carved up and caged these people so much that just to move from one street to another, you have to pass through all these heavy security measures. And Hewlett-Packard, HP, is one company that is supporting that. And I'll show you, for example, you might have remembered me passing through one of these checkpoints. Let's see if I can find it here. Play it for you right here. So, a lot of the infrastructure is supported by companies like HP, but here are some of these checkpoints. So you see these massive checkpoints. You can see what it's like to go through some of these places. So that's why we need to say no to HP, and HP makes a lot of products. I think I used to own an HP computer. So we need to say no more to HP, and not only to just not buy their products, but to say you're not buying their products. You can find a lot of BDS digital posters that you can post on your wall saying boycott HP, boycott this, and I'm going to provide some of those for you guys to share and have on your Facebook and social media pages as well. So in addition to HP, we also have companies like Sabra. You might have seen this in your local grocery store. Sabra Hummus. We need to boycott Sabra Hummus. They are a subsidiary of a company that provides financial support to the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli military, which is currently occupying the state of Palestine and oppressing the entire population. So we need to say no to Sabra as well. And of course, there's other companies like Caterpillar. If you're a business owner and you buy construction equipment, you want to not buy Caterpillar equipment. These bulldozers, these demolition machineries are demolishing Palestinian homes. Let's take a phone call. Afghanistan TV. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on Afghanistan TV.
Okay. Yeah, how are you doing, sir?
Yes. Do you have a question?
My name is, I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Raydun, and I immigrated from Afghanistan a couple of 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I just listened to your TV program. I noticed that everything that you're talking about Israel, I belong to a Muslim family, but our problem is not Israel. I immigrated to the U.S. not because of Israel, what they did to Palestine, but because of ourselves, our Muslim people, our Arabs, because they supported Al Qaeda, Taliban, and ISIS. So I had to leave Afghanistan. So we have been always supporting Palestine, but many of them in Afghanistan got arrested because they have been committing suicide. They were suicide bombers. Those people from Palestine, in Afghanistan, they were trying to kill us, and we still want to support them. Whatever they do, the Palestine or Israel, that means them, not to us. Also, you said don't boycott the HP computers, HP. Do you also want to say that don't go to Hajj or buy anything from Saudi Arabia because they support Islamic terrorists in my country, and I have to leave all my parents, sisters, and everyone, my beloved ones, and I came here. So just because of ourselves, you never blame Muslims, our Muslims, always blame Israel. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually going to get into something relevant to Afghans, and stay tuned just a little bit longer. I'll talk about how Afghans can follow the lead of the Palestinians to make an impact in their own country. So I really appreciate the sentiment. This gentleman is wondering, okay, well, how does this relate to Afghanistan? He's also, I think, confusing something about and generalizing about Arabs in the entire Middle East and how certain people act. The main point is the people of Palestine are oppressed. They're oppressed by the state of Israel. We need to show our support for the Palestinian people to have their own independent state. We need to boycott certain products, and we need to take initiative and an example from them. And I'm about to get into that right now about how Afghans can follow the lead of the Palestinians. So we're going to get into that, and companies that are affecting Afghans. That's what this show is actually about, is what companies are supporting the oppression of Afghans in Afghanistan. So we're going to get into that in 1 minute. Thank you very much, sir, for your call. He also mentioned, should we not buy from Saudi Arabia? There's actually a lot for us to talk about today of who we should be careful about, what we're buying from, and who we're supporting. So, as I was mentioning, we have these companies, HP, Sabra, Caterpillar, that we want to boycott. But what I want to do is talk about what we can learn from this. So, the Afghans can fight this occupation. You can fight this war that's happening in your country in other ways you might not have thought of. So one way is to fight the war profiteers. Many of you know that people are making a lot of money off of this war in Afghanistan. And I think that was a major driving force, because when you think about why wars happen, people make a lot of money off this. It's a power grab, it's geopolitical interests, but there's also massive profits that are made. We're talking billions and trillions of dollars. So what we can do is we can fight these war profiteers to affect them directly, to stop what they're doing, but also to get more global attention for peace, okay? So if we're making an impact against some of these war profiteers, people are going to take notice of that as well. It's going to start getting more attention to the conflict in Afghanistan that's not getting the media attention here in America. So if we start going after American war profiteering countries that are exploiting Afghanistan, then we can make an impact. One of the biggest perpetrators in not only the world, but especially Afghanistan, is GE, General Electric. I'm sure you're familiar with General Electric. They are a massive conglomerate. Let me just pull up their logo so you can see in case you need a refreshment. So General Electric. So GE they own a number of operations, from technology, goods, and media. They have a huge influence in the United States. They attack essentially on all fronts. So what they do is, first, they lobby for weapons contracts and war itself from the Pentagon in D.C. Then they make us all support these calls for war with their huge media outlets. GE used to own NBC Universal for a long time. So NBC is a major media outlet in the United States, and you might have seen a lot of these news reports. Let me play right here. So while in early 2001, if you were in Afghanistan, you remember just these bombs raining down and all this death and destruction occurring. Well, what we had was
America strikes back. Afghanistan
news networks like NBC calling, giving unfair and biased and inaccurate coverage to this conflict, and really deceiving the public as to what this war was about and whether it was really justified or not. NBC was a major player in influencing the American public that this was the right war, this was a justified war. So when you have a conglomerate like that not only are they advocating for the weapons contracts, so GE makes things like the engines for Apache helicopters. So one, they're in DC, they're lobbying for weapons contracts before the war happens. When the war happens, they're getting paid not only from their media advertising money, but the actual war itself. They have their hands in a lot of the technology of warfare, such as the Apache helicopter, which is a really devastating tool of war. And for somebody to be making money off of death and destruction, it's really horrifying, and it's really complicated, and it's part of this military-industrial complex. So this was an Apache helicopter in Afghanistan, early 2000s. So this is GE. Not only do they make refrigerators, but they're making weapons of death and destruction, and then they own the media outlets so they can provide a positive environment about this death and destruction. And then, there's not even that, there's more. So not only that, so after the war is done, after Afghanistan's completely devastated, GE makes even more money by getting involved in the reconstruction effort. So building power plants, infrastructure reconstruction, they made billions of dollars. So I'm calling on all Afghans to boycott GE, to boycott General Electric. And I'm going to be developing a campaign of all of the companies that are profiteering off of Afghans' misery and suffering. We need to put an end to this. We need to get some attention. We need to hit these people in their wallets. When we stop buying their products, when we stop giving them money, they're going to notice. I can guarantee you that. They're going to notice, the world's going to notice that Afghans are sick and tired of these war profiteers coming into their country, exploiting it, destroying it, and profiting off of the misery of Afghans. So make sure you're following our Facebook page, because I'm going to be posting a lot of these digital posters that you can have and share, and it's going to have a lot of information. It's going to have stuff like this, that Afghans boycott GE. If you believe in it and you want to share it. So I'm going to be creating a lot of this stuff in the coming weeks. I'm going to be working with Dr. Kamrani to identify and create more of a campaign around certain companies that we find to be really despicable and supporting these atrocities around the world, especially in Afghanistan. So that's General Electric. We're going to say no to General Electric.
Say Naharin.
Naharin. Saji's telling me how we need to say it. Yeah, I'm going to be providing multilingual posters and information so that it's accessible to people in all language, whether it's Dari, Pashto. We'll have it provided in all languages. So I'm going to be working on this Afghans boycott as well, and this is going to be part of a larger people's boycott that I want to develop. So I'm going to try to take from different campaigns, from the BDS movement, from boycott movements here in America, and I'm just going to create a central place, a central database, if you will, of companies that we should all boycott around the world. But I'll identify specific companies that are affecting Afghans as part of this Afghans boycott. Because you know what? As part of this larger people's boycott, we need to stand together in solidarity, because if we want to have a real impact, it's going to take all of us working in solidarity, working in support of one another to make a real impact. So that's why it's important for us to stand with the Palestinian people in their boycott, in their resistance, as well as other people around the world. So
Afghans shouldn't buy from Pakistan.
yeah, well, there's a lot more we're going to get into. I'm just going to name a few companies today, but yeah, Saji is mentioning to me other places that we really need to boycott. We're going to be working on that the next few weeks. We're going to have a nice list for you all of companies and places that we want to avoid buying from. So we're just getting started with all this. Don't worry, folks. So one other company I want to mention, I think it's really important for us to identify, because they're going to be playing a major impact in the next decade in Afghanistan. Now that companies are starting to come in and try to exploit some of the resources, and that company is IBM. So you probably didn't know. I didn't even know too much about this till just recently. But I was trying to research on who was going to capitalize on the Afghans' mineral resources, because I knew that was a major force for a lot of people to get involved with Afghanistan. There's trillions of dollars of mineral resources in Afghanistan, and that's something Dr. Kamrani has published about and spoken about, and we've also talked about a lot on this show, is how people are going to look to exploit these mineral resources. Well, IBM, one of the big beneficiaries of the Pentagon, they were part of this program to stabilize Afghanistan by facilitating private investment in the mineral wealth. So this is a controversial project designed to convince foreign investors and mining companies to develop Afghanistan's mineral wealth. So IBM is part of this program to bring in foreign companies to exploit Afghanistan's mineral resources. And I mean, we should expect this. Why would the Afghan people ever profit from something themselves when other companies are going to try to come in there and take advantage of it? So IBM, they make a lot of computer technologies. So we want to say no to IBM. We want to boycott IBM, and we're going to identify a lot of products and things that IBM sells and markets that we want to try to stay away from. We want to tell others to not buy from IBM, to not support this company. IBM is a massive American company, and we're going to try to boycott them. So I'll be speaking a lot on this further. I'm hoping to get together with Dr. Kamrani as well and continue to work on this so that we can talk about more of these companies. I mean, there's just a whole list of companies and products that are very commonplace that we can actually make an impact. I mean, of course, GE, they make light bulbs and appliances. We've got
IBM is making computers, right?
Yeah, IBM is a big part of computer industry.
Where do we get the computer in Afghanistan from?
Oh, there's lots of computer companies. So, if you're at the store, there's lots of alternatives. They do own a lot of these products, but there's always alternatives, and we'll identify safe products for you to buy as well, because I know you might be thinking, okay, well, if I don't buy this, what do I buy? So we'll try to help you all out and figure out what kind of computers you should buy, what kind of things you want to buy. There's a lot of products out there that are going to be a lot better for us to put our money into. But there's just so many. I've been researching a lot of this on all these companies that are part of exploiting Afghanistan, exploiting Palestine. For example, even if I was in the elevator the other day and something caught my eye. It said Otis. If you've ever been in an elevator, most of them are going to say Otis. Otis is part of United Technologies, which is a massive U.S. company and known as what they say a heavy hitter, meaning they're one of the biggest donors and lobbyists in the United States. They spend a lot of money to influence our lawmakers, our Congress, to come up with policies and funding for contracts that they want. So United Technologies makes the elevators, Otis, as well as a lot of military armaments. So United Technologies is something we'll get into in the future, but I just want to kind of touch on a few of these companies that are exploiting Afghanistan. They're capitalizing on the suffering that's happening in your country, in your home country. So we'll be talking about this much further. I'm very excited to present this campaign because I think this is one very effective way that we can have an impact. And as you've seen with the boycott, divest, sanction movement in Palestine, it has made an impact. And I really want to see this happen. I really want Afghans to get involved with this because, Palestine has a lot more attention, solidarity groups. We've got a lot of like student organizations that support Palestine, but I don't see that for Afghanistan. I don't see groups standing up for, the rights of Afghans. I don't see it happening, and this country has been far more devastated. I mean, this is a country that's endured warfare for decades now, and it's time that the world stands together with Afghans. It's time that we stand up to war profiteers. It's time that we stand up to greedy American businesses that are only there to exploit Afghanistan and not to help it create some democracy or whatever other kind of garbage they try to tell us. So stay tuned in the future on my coming shows, Dr. Kamrani's show. We'll be talking further about what we can do and how you can get involved in this campaign to end this war, to end this occupation of Afghanistan, to end social injustice around the world, because that's what we're talking about really is a people's boycott to stand up for human rights and social justice. So I hope you've enjoyed this program. You can always catch me on Thursdays here on Afghanistan TV. We're live on Facebook, Jadu. You can also see our repeated shows on our Afghanistan TV YouTube page. Please make sure you check that out. And I will be here next week to discuss more about this. So thank you all for watching. I'm Chris Smiley.